Oh, man. Okay, so getting back on the main course of talking here, whenever you're creating anything, is there a particular methodology to how you approach it?
Oh, it's almost never the latter.
Okay.
Where I can just sit down and do it. But every now and again, yes, it would be, but I would say not too much, just because I want to be able to erase as little as possible. So I want to know what I'm getting into. And I always remember a show I did a few years ago where one of my neighbors was like, came over and asked, "So is everything okay with this?" I'm like, What do you mean? I was working on I think I was working on a commission, or I was working on something for fun.
Yeah.
I was like, I've been watching you erase and erase constantly. I didn't know it was, for one, I didn't know this was something I needed to be aware of. I want to thank you for pointing this out. So I'm now completely self-conscious about erasing anything in a public setting. But it did at least, I mean, it was kind of a funny conversation.
Sure.
But ultimately, it's like, yeah, I didn't exactly know what I was going to do with this. So I just started drawing. And then I was like thinking on it, like, oh, I'm going to change the placement of these characters. So I was erasing. And so ever since then, I try to conceptualize a lot more and think about how I want stuff to be, where, the placement of things. So that way I don't have to erase or take as much time on something. If I can visualize it more, then the details come together a lot faster.
Yeah.
So it's both efficient and hopefully can lead to a better product, and not something that I'm, going through several erasers on one thing.
I get the whole erasing thing. I'm much more careful about what I do. I tend to thumbnail a lot more now because I do a lot of the erasing thing too.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
So, that's just something, it's good practice to get into, but then I get annoyed with my thumbnails and I want to erase them more.
The rough sketches you want to work on and make better. Yeah, I've been doing that a lot.
It's amazing how this is turning into a therapy session for me too.
Well,
maybe is it for you?
No, I'm only saying that because I completely intend on charging you $20.
What are some of the things in pop culture related arenas that either you drew inspiration from or were just foundational from your early years and may still influence you today?
Wow, that's a loaded question.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna tear it apart a little bit and go, basically you're wanting to know what inspired me to get into the art.
What inspired you to get into the art, and what still carries some inspiration? Like, was there some zeitgeist moment when you were like 3 and you're like, ooh, and you still kind of draw inspiration? Is there anything like that, or was it more recent?
I would say it's twofold. I can't remember any one specific like zeitgeist moment. I would say a lot of it was kind of a slow burn. I was, and I've told this story a lot, but from a writing aspect, it started with me playing with action figures and having toys and stuff, because I had so many different toys and fandoms growing up, mostly Star Wars, but He-Man, Ninja Turtles, all of that. And that's where I kind of got into the storytelling aspect of what I do, which is, I would create stories. It wasn't just, I've got Raphael and Shredder and I'm going to mash them together. It was, okay, what is Shredder's plan? Which turtles are going to be involved in that? Which side characters are going to show up? And why? So I would be working on that. And if friends came over, it was a whole thing where I was like, okay, which characters are you going to portray? Which ones am I going to portray? And then here's the story we're going to go off of. So we didn't do that a lot between me and my friends, because it was more about bashing the characters together. I was always trying to formulate a plot.
That's amazing.
So, and that's something I even still occasionally will do with the few action figures I have around. I'll be like just kind of messing with them and thinking, oh, this could be a fun story. I might do something and incorporate ideas into other things that I'm writing.
Oh, that's brilliant. Okay.
But that's where a lot of that started, was just me playing with toys and thinking of stories. And, I was basically enacting Star Wars prequels and sequels before they even existed.
Yeah.
They all involved Darth Vader somehow because he was the coolest villain, and I would figure out ways to bring him back. But that was, I would say, overall, toys have been a big inspiration to me because they afforded me an outlet to tell stories. And then they also kind of helped with the art because a lot of what I would draw was, stuff that I knew. So based on things. So Ninja Turtles was a big thing. I wrote my own Ninja Turtle comics, and
Oh my God, yeah.
I even found some that I did in grade school. They are awful. And I will say that they were drawn with a lot of confidence because I drew them in pen.
So you own that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I had so many one and 2 page Ninja Turtle comics,
Oh my God.
all in pen on notebook paper.
Oh man.
They were awful, but yeah, that was a big thing. So the toys that I had and made stories for, I ended up drawing stories. So ultimately, toys were kind of a big thing, but also the stories that existed along with them. So the Star Wars movies, the Ninja Turtle cartoons, Batman. My original Batman was Adam West, and then almost immediately was Keaton, and then Kevin Conroy. He is still my Batman. So whenever I read Batman comics, it's always his voice. But a lot of the stories that I've come up with have been based on or inspired by that Batman, different things like that. The Marvel Universe, came into being for me in middle school. I discovered Spider-Man and the X-Men, and those were always a huge influence, even though I've never written anything to do with them or about characters like that.
Yeah.
Just the character dynamics, the fact that X-Men was very much a soap opera at the time, and even the cartoon was like that. Those were hugely inspirational to the types of stories and character dynamics that I like to write now.
That's so interesting to me because, I had similar but different from even as a little kid. I was borrowing my mom's 110 camera or Polaroid camera to take pictures of my toys and action sequences because I like that angle. No pun intended, but it was that sort of thing. So I totally get that. I missed a lot of the more popular stuff. I didn't get into Marvel or DC until probably my teens. So as a little kid, I just wasn't aware of a lot of it. Because for some reason, my dad bought me a lot of World War II and Conan the Barbarian things.
Oh, fun.
So that Warlord from DC, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then a lot of Space Family Robinson. That was a gold key title.
Remember
that stuff. So, but that was because my dad liked 1950 science fiction stuff, like Supercar and things like that. Who do you consider some of your biggest influences? And that can certainly be outside of the realm of art.
Biggest influences, I'm a huge fan of Terry Moore, both as a writer and an artist, because he takes, as a writer, actually as both, he takes mundane situations and just crafts so much drama and beauty in them.
Yeah.
He's just spectacular. I have so much of his work in so many different formats. I will never have a complete collection in one place because I've got stuff of his in graphic novel format, single issue, digital, and it's all over the place.
Wow. Yeah.
So unless I rebuy everything, I will never have his complete library in one spot, and I'm kind of okay with that. I love his character work and stories, and the fact that he doesn't. It all exists in the same universe, but it's not so mainstream that it's not like a Marvel multiverse or anything. It's just all these stories take place in the same world, and they can interconnect in little ways that ultimately don't really matter in the narrative. It appeals to folks who read this book and that book, and seeing sort of the slice of life stories really inspired me to kind of write my own. It also got me to understand that you can write about day-to-day life with characters that are inspired by people that but are you going to be able to tell that story in a way that is someone's going to care? And that is
so true.
That's a huge thing with Terry Moore is his characters, you learn to care about them. Even characters you hate initially, he can make you grow to love them.
Yeah.
So that's something that I've learned, not just from I can write these kind of stories. It's more, I can write these kind of stories, but I have to have a character or I have to create a reason for you to care about them. So that's definitely something that I've learned over time reading his books is what is so great about my characters that you're gonna want to read about them as opposed to me just wanting to write about them, because it's definitely both are very important.
Absolutely.
In crafting a story.
Well, handcrafting a character, that's been one of the most challenging things for me. Understanding that, like when I read other people's works, like just understanding what somebody did to, with words, evocatively paint an illustration of that character to the point to where I can see their mannerisms, their movements, how they fell, how they swung a sword, how they pull a gun, how they write a letter, how they cry over loss, and how powerful some people can write that into existence. So something that's become even more prevalent. What are your thoughts on the whole AI art thing?
It makes me mad and I hate it.
You are allowed to cuss on this if you'd like.
I understand and I respect that. I'm gonna try not to.
No, totally understand.
But I hate it. And I also hate the fact that I thought it was good at first because I didn't know it was.
Yeah.
Because you can tell anymore.
Yeah.
And it's not because there are like flaws or anything. It's just it has that look that you can just tell that this is something that no person actually created.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that at first when that's what I was seeing. Because I would occasionally go on DeviantArt and I'm like looking at all this stuff that has very similar styles and I'm like, a lot of these artists are very, very similar, but it's all really cool. And then I'm like, that looks weird. That looks exactly the same as this from another person. And then I finally figured out, this is all AI art.
Yeah.
Art. So this is all stuff that people are creating based on code.
Yeah.
So, and I really don't like that, especially because I will see folks who are putting stuff out there that looks kind of cool, but they had nothing to do with it other than a glorified Google search.
Yeah.
Is all it really takes. And I'm sure there is more to it than that, but I don't need to know how much of it goes into it because I know no one is creating anything.
Correct.
And that's the hard part is the folks who are doing this are putting it out there and they're getting credit for it and they're getting all these likes. And it's like, all they did was type something into a program and the AI made this. Like they had virtually nothing to do with it. And I'm really scared to see people at conventions selling stuff like that. I haven't seen it yet, and I hope I don't.
Yeah,
but
I haven't either. I don't know how I felt when it first started coming out because I always follow new trends in tech. And I remember when the kind of Silicon Valley tech bros were talking about the advent of it.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time I saw it was an environment generator. And I had a former client that got really excited. And the majority of my work for that position was Photoshop mockups.
Mm-hmm.
But then when they found out that there was a program out there, that was my first real, that's when I felt the first ramifications of where this was going. And there was another fellow, he was a full-time worker at this client's workplace, but he was horrified when I showed it to him. He was like, oh my God, I hope this is niche. I hope this is something that just is so hard to do. And I told him it's not. According to this, it uses something called prompting. And he said, what the hell is that? And he was like, you're actually telling it to, I'm like, yeah, you actually are entering in descriptive formats. And he goes, but where's it pulling this from? Because it can't be making that. I think it was two or 3 days later, he came to me, he's like, they're using something called data sets. And that was when I first heard about how they were basically farming everything. Mm-hmm. I have yet to see it, but I've been hearing that there's more comics and children's books and other publications that are fully done that way, that are AI generated through GPT and stuff, making Amazon sell lists and stuff. There's a lot of moral issue I have with it, but there's also a lot more emotional weight that it's a weird thing to feel like I can't really find any other, well, no, I take that back. I was going to say I can't really see anywhere else that something that is essentially glorified automation has overtaken what you do in life. But I had to stop myself because recently when there were I think it was 2 strikes. No, 1 strike in particular that happened with Amazon. There were some workers that went on strike and they deployed robots.
Mhm.
And that sounds like the most dystopian sci-fi headline you could ever imagine.
Yeah.
But Bezos did have access to prototype robots, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And now they were doing the packing. He just fired everyone,
Yeah.
Or whoever was directly over them. And the other day, I thought, The Matrix has kind of done this. Ready Player One sort of did this. But could you imagine if a company came along, let's say Amazon, okay? We're going to play a little game here.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if you were offered any kind of pitch like, hey, life is hard, but you know what? Thanks to Amazon, you've put all of your family photos on our hard drives. You've uploaded your stuff. We bought YouTube. They go on and on about all the stuff they know about you. What if you could go back to 1989? What if you just, for an hour a day, you could slip away and go back, and they could promise you packaged nostalgia in a virtual world? What if that was a service you could subscribe to? The day in and day out, you could go, and instead of playing a Super Nintendo that you bought refurbished or your old one, set it in today's world on your mantle and played it on your television over here. What if now you could virtually do that? You're in your house, but you're no longer really, attenuated to what's out here. You're focused on a particular paradigm that is built directly on images and photos that AI has enhanced to build out. Not too dissimilar from what it already does by scraping data sets and culminating something together, but now personalized to you.
That's terrifying.
Right.
I can't remember exactly what word you used, but I got creeped out
Yeah.
at some point during that diatribe, and
Yeah.
it's incredibly unsettling.
Yeah.
Like, that sounds cool, but also not something that anybody should want.
That's exactly
Or
right. Yeah.
it's okay to want that, but I don't think you should have access to that.
No.
That just seems odd. But it also seems like everything that AI is starting to become.
Absolutely.
Because this whole time I keep going back to that post that I've read in multiple meme chats now that I have with friends, and it's the thing that I don't want I don't want AI to make art and tell stories. I want it to do my laundry and dishes so that I can do. Yeah. I'm totally paraphrasing that improperly, but I'm assuming you've seen.
Absolutely. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
That's exactly what I want. AI is a great tool to make jobs better, easier. It should not be a tool to replace people in those jobs.
Absolutely.
And that goes with not just from from writing and art, but just any job, because every job is important. Everyone who has a job has that job for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as AI becomes the thing with that job and it takes it away from someone else, that's not okay. In my work, we use it, but as a tool. It's not meant to replace people. And as soon as it does that, then that's too much. You're giving too much power to that system.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying we're going to face some sort of a Terminator-like future.
Right.
But there's a reason why Skynet and AI were the villains in those movies.
Absolutely.
Because people in those movies did not respect that power.
Yeah.
And even like Jurassic Park had nothing to do with AI, but you don't respect that power, and it gets out there. I feel like that is where we're heading. I don't know what could happen. It could be absolutely nothing, but it's creepy, it's unsettling, and it's not okay for folks to lose work because of it.
Right. And they can even more so lose themselves.
Absolutely.
Because, to pull a metaphor from a popular movie, Napoleon Dynamite, Uncle Rico. He is fundamentally a flawed but hilarious character.
100%.
But he is also the epitome of, I peaked in high school. That's it. If I'd only made that touchdown. Dude, stop throwing the football. Please. Because I know I've been there. There are scenarios in my head I run back through all the time You know, like the older I get, the more sometimes if I'm not careful and I'm sitting downstairs writing something, I get caught in the thought process. And I'm like, man, coulda, woulda, shoulda,
Oh yeah.
you know? And then I'm reflecting with where I am now. And I have friends that are like in their 70s and stuff that I know online through model build train groups and things like that are like, you'll be 70 before you know it. I'm like, I know this. I know that. But I want to know what you're doing about that now. You know, like, where are you now? Because I think that's the most important thing. Youth is wasted on the young. I have always said that. That paradigm is crazy. I know what that's like to be 20 and thinking, I have eternity. Well, you're not an elf, Mario, so like that's not going to happen. But there's still that whole weird diagram of thought where you're invincible. Nothing can happen to me. I'm fine. I'm going to be okay. And I often think, like, if AI comes along and it makes things even dumber and simpler for me, and I start to, what am I going to do with that? Because like you brought up, AI could be a really good tool to make our lives easier, and we could grow from that. And then I see something, which is a real thing. It's an acquaintance of mine. She confers with ChatGPT every day. What should I do today? I have a meeting with my boss. How should I handle that? And swears by it. It's almost as crazy as the conspiracy theory thing I was talking to you before we started recording. It is on that level to where you're asking a generative bit of software for how to manage your life decisions. I find that hilarious because all you're doing is playing with a magic 8-ball. You're just shaking that little liquid and then like, yep, well, it's fuzzy. Come back later. It feels like the same sort of thing. But because ChatGPT may also be complicative to us, because it's programmed to do so, because it's learning us, whether it's an algorithm or however it's made, we're going to become emotionally invested in it. I mean, that's already been proven that we can get emotionally invested in fictional characters that aren't even supposed to be human. I love R2-D2. Yeah, he's a droid. And whether I like to think of it or not, he is represented as a type of artificial intelligence that is probably the only character in the entire 9 movies that knows what went down. And that's mind-blowing what his take on everything is.
Yeah. And you bring that up now, and it's kind of weird to think of robots and those kind of characters in that light, because it's like, characters like R2, Data, how much of his programming came from his creator versus all of his interactions with people, and it almost makes it seem totally feasible for Data to have an evil twin brother who went off the rails and his programming was all jacked up, but how much of that came from what was already built and how much came from external factors. And
but his brother Lore, isn't it?
Lore.
He scared me more because he was essentially caught in between. He was artificial intelligence with this wild spectrum of humanity that was unnerving. Unprecedented intelligence and capability and strength matched with a genius intellect that was hampered and driven by human emotive circumstances.
And not to mention extraordinary, extra human strength, not like superhuman, but I mean, could easily overpower either one of us.
Oh yeah, by far. I think canonically in the Star Trek series, like he was like, I'm pretty sure even some of the strongest characters like Klingons and the Borg were nothing to him.
Right.
And see that's man, that's often why I look to science fiction, because like even reading stuff like from Ray Bradbury, like my perennial favorite of his is The Fall of House of Usher 2, because it literally talks about a smart home. The whole thing. Because it's about a house burning down and all the defenses, all the artificial intelligence aspects in there to prevent fires and cook food and everything. But you're alluded to the fact that the family died in nuclear fallout because their shadows are burned onto the outside walls. But the house still remains, which was one of the most terrifying things I've ever read. And it got me interested in the concept of futurism, That was some dark stuff. That's why, like, my mind immediately went to that when we started, like, with all this AI stuff. I'm like, how far are we going to let this get?
We'll soon see.
Yeah, I guess.
Or we never will. We will. It will outlive us.
Yeah,
We'll see how far it goes.
That is true. That is true. Is it possible for you to be able to define what it means to be an artist? And if so, what is that definition?
Define what it means to be an artist.
What does it mean to be an artist for you?
It's something that is I think for a lot of professions, I think would be hard to define, but I think for that it's kind of simple. It's, creating something out of nothing that brings you joy, and hopefully ultimately could bring joy to someone else. Like that's
really good.
Yeah. I mean, that's simple. That's why I drew for myself for years and years. And it's only been like in the last, say, 12 years or so that I've been doing cons and, trying to draw stuff for other people. And hopefully they pay me a little bit for it.
Yeah.
But even then, as a kid, I would draw for folks, and I didn't care about making anything or making any money because I did the thing. I drew what I wanted.
Right.
That, and I still try to have that mentality, even though, I have to make table costs. So yes, I want to draw stuff for you for money. This is a capitalist society. So
Sure.
But that's still how I try to approach it, is like, I'm drawing because I want to.
Yeah.
Because it's very easy to just do it as a hobby and not try to do it professionally. I can get the same kind of joy out of it, but I wouldn't have the same opportunities.
Yeah.
I would not, meet new people that have similar passions, or, I wouldn't have met you. I wouldn't have met any of our other colleagues if I hadn't, put myself out there to try to do it. So it's always about passion and about creation, because we don't do this to make money.
Yeah.
We want to be able to.
Right.
But that's not the driving force.
Right. Yeah. No. Oh my God. That's really good, man. Wow. If you can believe it, we're only like halfway through the questions.
I can.
Okay. Let's go ahead and do this next one here. So you've had the opportunity to travel to quite a few different places over the last few years.
Yeah.
Of the places you've been, what was the one standout that you really loved? And in particular, was there anything art-centric that you had hoped to see when you were out and about that you specifically looked for?
Well, I would say, so we went to New Zealand for a week and then Fiji for the following week.
Amazing.
Yeah. It's obviously, I'm still talking about it.
Right.
It was a vacation several years in the making, and it was absolutely fantastic. Absolutely worth going to if and when you have the opportunity to go. I'm speaking to anyone, including you. I mean, New Zealand is just gorgeous, and there's a reason why they made 3 of the most beautiful films ever made.
Yeah.
Primarily there, because it does feel like a completely different world. Even though I wasn't necessarily going there for art, although I did actually, going to the Weta workshop.
Right.
And so, where they made a lot of the props and sets and things, was really cool. And so I did get to see a lot of art from that perspective, but also just being in that country and seeing, perfectly green landscapes and, gorgeous blue skies and mountains. Is just incredible, and it made the world seem so much bigger and more beautiful, and wanting to create more. So it was just inspiring from that perspective. It made me want to go out and live more and do more things and go ziplining, which I did. And
oh my God,
that was, for someone who has a fear of heights, that's not easy.
Yeah,
but holy crap, it was fun.
Oh my God.
I've done it again since then, just because I had such a blast doing it. But just little things like that, like finding inspiration and beauty in different aspects of the world, and new places that you haven't been to, I think is just awe-inspiring and can help get those creative juices flowing.
And that's admirable too, because you overcame a fear.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I still have that fear of heights.
Still.
Especially a falling part.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's the, biggest part of having a fear of heights.
Yeah,
But,
I've been there. Gravity wins again. I know.
absolutely. But yeah, I did something that, 5 years ago, maybe, for sure 10 years ago, I wouldn't have wanted to do. Maybe in 5 years, I'll want to go skydiving. But as of right now, that's still no. I don't want to do that.
I have always wanted to skydive. At the same time, I've not wanted to. Mainly because I know that when you jump the first time, correct me if I'm wrong on this, you jump with the person who is helping you jump.
I'm pretty sure that's
right.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm not comfortable with anybody else knowing exactly how high pitched my scream is as I jump. I know to get a bit straight here, I know the inner bitch is going to come out of me. Like it's going to come out. Like I do have a fear of heights. It's odd though. I love rappelling. I can rappel because I'm getting back to the ground. My feet never leave the ground. I'm just bouncing off a cliff with a really thick string and some harnesses, and I'm good.
That checks out.
But I mean, it's cool you did it also from the aspect that I admire that because you were just and then you went back and did it again, and that's cool.
Yeah, we went
cool.
ziplining in California last year.
Yeah,
so that was something that I flat out said I want to do this.
I get a lot of grief though for wanting to bungee jump. Now this I can't explain, except that one of my big heroes, Billy Connolly, did it. See, and he talked about that in an interview. He went to Australia because I guess the Australians invented it because of course they did.
Right.
But he's like, I remember in the interview, he's like, oh yeah, you can go down there and I'll let you do it, but you don't pay for it if you're naked. And I thought, I got to do that now. If Billy Connolly did it, I can do it. He was on Conan O'Brien's show when he was talking about that.
Bungee jumping, I would just be so scared that it's just the wrong length.
Oh yeah,
and I'm gonna crack my head open and die.
I know.
And then if I go the same route you do, then I'm just some dead naked guy hanging off of a rubber band, and nobody wants to do that.
No, good Lord, yeah, no, that's true. That see that hadn't really thought about it because that's some of that youthful optimism I still have in me. Like I'll be fine. I'll wear a helmet. Yeah. Well, then you're not really naked. Oh, the turns this has taken.